An Unwanted Delivery, The Pizza Chronicles. As a third-year university student, I like to think that pizza, gyros, and hamburgers are important staples of my cost-effective and not nutritious nutritional needs. Needless to say, it wasn't long before I became besties with the guys running the local pizza parlor 3 blocks from my house. The guys were super cool. I met them for the first time when my best friend Sharon, Shar, and I went in to buy a pizza for our movie night. I wasn't too jazzed on the movie night because my lesbian roommate Sam insisted on joining in. Now I'm not homophobic. Shar is the biggest lesbian out there. She thinks I have a very nice butt. I was Sam-phobic though. She decided pretty early on that I was hiding my true lesbian nature and had been trying to get me to accept myself for what she believed me to be for like 3 months. This meant that movie nights with Sam mostly consisted of that one where Cuba Gooding goes on a gay cruise, the one with the chick working in a flower shop, and the one where Nikki from OITNB is a high school cheerleader rooting for her team. So I wasn't too stoked on the movie night. These mostly ended in deep conversations about the importance of revealing your true sexuality, and neither was Shar because Sam had a way of making things fucking awkward. Sam would later go on to tell Shar's girlfriend of 5 years that Shar was cheating on her in an attempt to break them up so that she could later help Shar pick up the pieces. Shar's kind of a total babe. I told these pizza dudes about my roommate and her crazy movie night antics, and they tried to help us out by inviting Shar and me to come back at midnight to watch a horror movie on the projector that they had set up in the dining area. I'm pretty big on horror movies, so to me it sounded like an awesome idea. Shar thought it sounded like a plot to kidnap and murder us. We were going. Over the next couple of months, I became tight with the guys, and I would come over every Friday night for scary movie night and discounted pizza. The dudes were cool and a good way to get time away from Sam, who had taken to tracking my movements like Dog the Bounty Hunter. The guys were pretty successful with their pizza, and pretty soon they had to hire more drivers, which is when I met Bill. Bill is pretty much your stereotypical old guy who failed at life. He was in his 40s, but he looked like he was pushing 60. He was constantly high, and he never showed up to work on time, but always had a really measly and long-winded excuse full of anecdotes of why his life as a pizza delivery guy was so hard. Customers hated him too. When they opened their front door, he would push his way into the house and put their pizza on the kitchen counter/table, something he thought would get him a bigger tip. He wouldn't leave their front door until they gave him what he felt was a big enough tip. If they didn't have money, then he'd tell them that they could tip him in pot. If they didn't have that, then he'd start to yell at them for being cheap assholes. One night I was studying and had to order in instead of going out. Normally the guys only sent the cool delivery guys to my place, but that night the rotation hit Bill. He stood in my doorway chatting me up for a long time and told me that the guys called him Big Bill for a reason. So obviously Bill needed to get fired like yesterday. The guys do what they have to do and give him notice. I come into the shop on Bill's last working night and talk to my buddy Pete about the firing. Apparently, Bill was taking it well and was just about to finish his last delivery of the night. I hung around to talk to Pete about his troubles with his crazy girlfriend, actually a pretty nice lady. Bill comes in while we're talking and tries to join in the conversation. I was standing at the counter with Pete behind me and Bill at my side. Bill starts offering me rides home. I declined because, hey, dude, give me the skeevs. He kept insisting that it was on his way, but I just kept telling him that it was only a 15-minute walk and that I'd be fine. He started to get pouty and then said that I didn't want to get in the car with him because I thought he was creepy. He hit that nail on the head, but since this is Canada and we're polite to a fault, I just laughed it off and insisted that I'd just really rather not. Bill kept pouting and then went outside to have a smoke in his car. On the way out, he grabbed my ass. This sort of abuse isn't uncommon for my bum, but it still pisses the hell out of me when it happens. As soon as Bill was out the door and halfway to his car, I told Pete about the ass grab. Pete was a total dude about it and told me that it was a good ass and that he'd probably have done the same if he had the balls. I was pissed as a wet cat and it was getting late, so I started my trudge back home. At the cross light, a gray piece of junk that I recognized as Bill's car drove up to me. Bill rolled down his window and asked if I was sure that I didn't want to ride. Even after his charming ass grabbing, I was still pretty keen on not getting in a car with him. Who would have thought, eh? So once again I said, "No thanks, dude," and he pulled a right, presumably to loop back into the back parking lot of the pizza shop. He shot me a smile and a creepy little wave. I hated that dude. I kept on walking until I reached the next crosswalk. When I was halfway across, a gray little shit beater drove up behind me and blasted on the horn. The car drove on past me, so I figured it was just Bill being an aggressive dick like usual. I walked down Main Street, keeping my eye out for him until I reached the gate leading from the street to the backyard of my house. I'm usually pretty nervous entering the backyard because it's dark as the bottom of the ocean in that bitch, so I grabbed my keys between my fingers for a makeshift pair of brass knuckles just in case. All was good in the backyard, but when I turned the corner to reach the front of the house, I saw a gray shitty shit beater parked on the curb. One thought went through my head. Fuck. So I'm not super rational, and even though I was standing right at the entrance to my landlord's basement suite, I instead bolted an extra 20 feet for my front door. I felt like I was going a million miles an hour and that he was going at like 0.3 Michael Myers paces per minute. Mike Myers is one slowly but surely motherfucker. I reached the door and fumbled my keys when I heard his car door shut. I dropped my keys on the fucking ground. I whipped down to pick them up and I heard him whistle. I jammed the keys into my door, turned and slammed that shit behind me as fast as I could, and turned the lock. Suddenly my life got quiet. I didn't turn on any of the lights, I just went to the front window and watched. I couldn't make out Bill's out. I could see that he was in the car from the lit end of his cigarette. I called for Sam, but she wasn't home, so instead I called Pete on the phone. Our conversations went like this, pardon my excessive use of the French language. Generic Italian mob boss pizza, Pete here. What can I dash fuck, shit Pete. What the fuck? Fucking Bill followed me home, man, fuck. Whoa, what? Fucking creepy ass grabbing fucking Bill is outside my fucking house. Dude, he's supposed to be on the other side of town. I asked him to do a delivery at 10 Mile like 20 minutes ago. Well, he's fuck hashtagging here. He's probably just pulling this shit because he thinks you're pretty and it's his last shift. Are you sure it's him? It's not like my town had a shortage of gray beater cars, but I think I had seen this one enough times in one night to make a positive ID. Yeah, dude, it's like definitely him. Okay. I can be over there in like 15 minutes. Okay. See you soon. I hung up on Pete and moved away from the big front window so that I could hide in my room where I could look through a smaller window that he was less likely to see me in. All of our doors lock and are really heavy duty, so I felt pretty secure in my room. I didn't turn on my bedroom lights, but I crumpled once I locked the door. I sat there for a little bit trying to calm down my breathing. I heard my landlord watching a movie downstairs in his living room, but I didn't get up until I heard the doorbell. The only way to reach the door to the downstairs suite was to walk down the stairs leading to the front door and then take the next set of stairs down. I was fucking determined to get my landlord, a way bigger guy than Pete, but I needed to get past our windowed front door first, where Bill would be able to see me if he was at the door. At this point, I was pretty scared, and being scared makes me angry, so I essentially said, "Fuck it" to myself and went down the stairs to the front door. I could see his head and the left half of his body through the window pane. He saw me try to sneak past and called out, "Hey, what?" "It's me, Bill, from generic Italian mob boss pizza. Pete sent me over with a free pizza for you." I noped myself right down the stairs to my landlord's door. I knocked and he groggily opened it up for me. I told him the situation, which went down like, "Landlord, creepy fucking pizza guy followed me home and now he won't leave." My landlord is pretty much the coolest dude ever, so he snaps awake and heads up to the front door. He uses his adult voice and tells Bill that Mwat did not order pizza and that if he doesn't leave he's going to call the fucking cops. Bill doesn't say anything, but we see him walk back to his car. He did have a pizza box, but probably one meant for another order. My landlord was tired, so he gave me a quick, "Come get me immediately when crazy shit like this happens," and then went to bed. I watched Bill in his car from the big window, keeping my screen on and lit as bright as it could go, so that he could see that I had my phone ready to dial. He started up his shitbox and rolled down the road. I called Pete at the pizza place to tell him that my landlord handled it and that he didn't have to come anymore. Pete waited for Bill to come back and then basically threatened the life of his Big Bill namesake if he ever came back to the pizza place or near me again. It's been almost 2 years since then, and I've never heard from or about Bill since. In the end, I didn't call the cops, which if you'd read my post about the tomboy and the mountain goats, you'd know that that's kind of just the way I was raised. I don't know if it's a cultural difference between Canadians and Americans, but I have only called the cops once in my life when I was too young to deal with the situation myself, 3 teenagers mugging a 20-something-year-old dude. So sorry if it offends you that I didn't call the RCMP. Luckily for the women of Canada, Bill emits his creepy vibes like the sun emits heat, so I'm pretty sure he'll never get more than a step ahead before they realize what's up. I, a pizza guy, intercepted a kidnapping during a delivery. I deliver pizza, and I'd been having a really busy night, non-stop back and forth, without any time to even pause and take a leak. I'd been so busy that I wasn't thinking about bathroom breaks. But we're also going through a bit of a heat wave in our area, so I've been drinking copious amounts of water. All of a sudden, as I was driving to this particular delivery, the urge to go hit me. Like, things went from 0 to 60 in an instant. Thankfully, I was close to the customer, so could get this one over with quickly. Or so I thought. I pulled up to the house, and it was an area I'd delivered in before, so I could immediately see that something wasn't right. All the lights were off in the house, not even the glow of a television or anything. It was extra apparent because the street light closest to the door happened to be out of order. And on top of it all, the block was dead quiet. This is a big university area, and there aren't many student renters in July, but there had to be at least one person because someone ordered this pizza. Maybe they just liked sitting in the dark, or they were out back in the yard, whatever. I just didn't want to get out of my car and knock on a quiet house in the middle of the night, around 9:30 p.m., without first checking that I had the correct address and the customer was inside. It was scorching that night, even after sundown. My car's AC is a joke, and the piping hot pizzas don't help things much, so I have to try and open the car door as infrequently as possible to keep any cool air in. I called the number the customer provided, and the voice on the other end said, kind of brusquely and out of breath, "Yeah?" I just tried to keep it clear and concise. "Hey, it's your pizza out front, but there doesn't appear to be anybody home." And the customer replied, still gasping for air, "Yeah, I'm not home." I had to pee so badly by that point that I was much less patient than I'd otherwise be with the customer right out of the gate. "Well, then we're going to have to terminate the order because I've arrived in the stated delivery window and you were supposed to pay in cash. So, I don't know what to tell you. Plan next time." I instantly regretted letting my bladder do the talking for me as the voice on the other end came through more clearly as a young, bubbly, and very distraught girl who couldn't have been older than 20 or 25. "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, I was running down the street so I could barely hear you," she cried. "I just switched you out of my AirPods. Is that better? Sorry, I completely lost track of time at work, but I knew you were coming. That's why I'm running home right now. Please don't leave, I'm starving and I don't have a car. Seriously, please don't leave. 5 minutes tops, okay? I know what it's like to be hungry, running late, and have no car but not live near any restaurants." Plus, when I heard her voice, I began to remember more specifically having delivered to this place a couple of times before, and she'd always been perfectly nice. Now I felt bad for snapping at her. I tried to walk it back, while simultaneously looking out my window for potential spots to pee. No, my bad. I'm letting the heat get to me, and it's not your fault. No need to rush. See you when you get here. I hung up and, while surveilling the street, was starting to think I was really out of luck. All the other houses had people in them and were close together, so there were no clumps of trees or out-of-the-way patches of land or anything. Of course, I had just tossed my empty water bottle at the last delivery because I'm an idiot. Finally, I decided it was escalating to the point of an emergency, and the safest bet was to use a bush in front of the woman's house. She wasn't home. The street light was out so no one would see me. The people who were home were inside. My car was parked across the street, and we're a small shop who don't wear uniforms, so if someone did spot me, they'd have no way to connect me to my employer. Animals pee outside all the time. Humans are animals. This is fine. I scurried over to the tallest bush in her front yard. She didn't have much of a yard, more just a walkway lined with bushes and flowers that ran adjacent to her front door. The biggest cluster of bushes, the only one where I could be sure there would be no visible splatter on the side of the house, was about 4 feet from her door. I looked both ways, unzipped, and let fly. After the initial millisecond of relief, I noticed the sound was way off, more like pissing on something solid than something leafy. I started panicking, thinking I'd aimed wrong. But once I started, I couldn't stop midstream, so I kept squinting into the darkness to see if maybe I was hitting a key rock or something and could just move a few inches over. Instead, all of a sudden, I heard a way more concerning noise. A deep voice exclaiming, "What the fuck?" And before I could turn around, assuming I'd been caught by a neighbor, a man came leaping out of the bushes. He blew by me, brushing my golden shower off him as did. He spits pretty emphatically on the ground, so I think I might have beaten him right in the face. I didn't see where he went after a few paces, but, though this next part is kind of a blur, I do think I remember hearing a car screech out from a bit further away after a minute. I'd gotten some night vision by that point, so I was able to make out his height, build, and outfit, but only the most general details of each. I was in such shock that I didn't even put my dick away. I just stood there trying to figure out what had happened. The reality was so terrifying that my mind refused to accept it, and impulsively searched for a reasonable explanation that could make everything okay. I thought, could these bushes lead to some backyard area and just look like they were against the house? Could they have been obscuring an open window? My inner voice was desperately screaming, bruh, that man was wearing a hoodie in 90-degree weather. That was a bad man. You're in a bad situation. But the very idea that I was within inches of a guy who would be hiding in bushes at all, let alone in front of a young woman's house at night, just wasn't something I was ready to grapple with yet. I was coping by not coping. My fight or flight response failed me at that point because my dumb ass did the absolute last thing I should have done and approached the bushes to try and validate this. There must have been a good reason for a man in a hoodie to be behind these bushes in the middle of the night theory. So I walked over to the side, turned on my phone flashlight, and tried to peer around the line of shrubbery. Pro tip, as scary as things may look in the dark, seeing them with a single beam of your flashlight can sometimes make it even worse. That's when I saw the bag. There was a tattered drawstring bag sitting behind the bushes, slightly splashed with pee. But I was in such a moronic daze from the shock that I groped around for it, thinking, see, this is it. This will explain why he was back here. It explained it. Once I maneuvered it over and pulled it open, I saw a sharp knife, a roll of duct tape, and a bottle of pills. The delusions officially broke at that point, and all the adrenaline, endorphins, and self-preservation instincts that had been suppressed kicked in 10 times over. I became whatever the opposite of dazed is. More laser-focused than I have ever been in my life, with one singular goal: get back to my car. I dropped the bag, booked it across the street, got in my car, and slammed the pedal to the floor before the door was even all the way closed. I went as far as I could as fast as I could until I hit a red signal. Then I pulled off to the side and realized I shouldn't be driving any more than necessary in the condition I was in. I pulled into the parking lot of a 24-hour drugstore and took a breath. I was finally calm and coherent enough to zip up and formulate a plan of action. My first lucid thought was, who do I call first, the police or the girl whose house that was? I thought about it for what couldn't have been more than 10 seconds, but felt like an hour, and decided, okay. I am in my locked car with the engine running. If trouble starts, I can drive away. I know something's up, she might not. She needs to know not to keep walking in that direction. But as I was dialing her number, it occurred to me, what if there was no girl? I thought I remembered delivering to that house before, but what if I was wrong? What if the girl on the phone was just a decoy to get me there to rob me, or worse? Every pizza guy on the planet has seen the Evil Genius documentary by now, so I thought she called me all out of breath. She wasn't home. The whole thing was off. Can't risk it. I'll start with the cops. I called 911, and the operator was very helpful in keeping me calm because I was a complete wreck by this point. He kept assuring me that someone would be there soon. I kept telling them they had to get there before the girl did, but I was trying to express 3 thoughts at once and damaging my credibility. It came out more as, you've got to save this girl because he wasn't after me, I was just delivering a pizza. Unless they were after me, in which case there might not be a girl, but I talked to one on the phone, so then you should find that girl because they used her to lure me there. But if she's real, she doesn't know about the guy, who was also real, and there could be more guys if there's a girl, and you know what? Even if there isn't a girl, there might be more guys. I only checked one part of the bushes, so I don't know. But we'll know which guy is the one I saw because I pissed all over him, you know. I didn't mean to. This was back when I thought the girl was real, but not home. But she might be real, so you need to find her if she is, because the guy was real. Finally, they just asked me to stop talking and stay on the line. But that was when I saw an incoming call from the customer. I couldn't answer it without disrupting my 911 call, so I just ignored it. But then she sent me this text like, "Hey, I'm here, don't see you?" I told 911 she was there and they said officers were only minutes away. But who knows how long that meant? Especially after I'd given such a scattered account of the events in my panic. I just felt overwhelmed with guilt. Because my rational mind said the odds of her being a decoy girl for some large scam targeting pizza guys were low and the odds of her being the intended victim of a predator were high. So I put my 911 call on mute, where I can hear them but they can't hear me, and turned back, heart pounding out of my chest, compulsively muttering fuck, 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 the entire way. Then I took 911 off mute and told them I had returned to look for the girl. They weren't happy about that, but I saw her meandering past the parked cars in the street looking to see if one was mine, and I waved her down, flashing my brights. She bounced over to the window of my car, happy-go-lucky. I figured that was a good sign that she wasn't in on whatever this was. But I was just so scared to be back in the general area and to not know what had just happened or what was going to happen. I kept whispering, "Get in. Get in." And she was like, "Get it? Huh? Oh, you want me to get the pizza from the back?" I didn't want to make the same mistake with her that I had made with 911, so instead of trying to tell the whole story, I stuck to the bare basic facts. There was a man in your bushes. I'm on the phone with the police. I don't know where he is right now. Please get in the car so we can lock the doors. I was barely able to get even those sentences out, and I was shaking like I'd had 10 cups of black coffee. I held up my phone with 911 on the call screen to verify it for her. I thought that was why she got in the car with no further explanation, but it turns out that wasn't entirely it. "You still there? Is she with you? Are you safe? Is anyone else there?" 911 kept checking in, not knowing who the third party I was talking to was. I reassured them, and we drove, more cautiously this time, to a location 911 instructed us to wait to speak with police after they cleared the area. I didn't have to do much after that. The police came pretty soon after. A police car met us. I gave a statement telling them everything I observed, and she went to go speak to more officers in more detail than they needed me for. It turns out the reason she got right into a strange pizza guy's car without probing any deeper into my story is because she knew who the man was right away from my description. She had an abusive ex-boyfriend who was psychotic enough that he immediately came to mind after hearing "there's a guy in your bushes." She later called us to thank me and insisted on leaving a huge tip. I wasn't there when the call came in, so the kid who answered didn't know to refuse to accept the money. But the manager already promised the next time we see her we can load her up with enough one free pie cards to last a lifetime. Easily the scariest thing that has ever happened to me, on the job or off. I don't get the chance to tell the story much, because I try to avoid sharing it with anyone who could know the girl or know of the event. But I'm still not the same since. Even though I know he didn't even have anything to do with me directly, this truly shook me to my core. So, man in the bushes, let's not meet. The reason why I will never deliver pizza again. From an early age, I was what some folks might label a delinquent, a troublemaker. I was the kind of guy who would always be found around the wrong crowds, getting entangled in nefarious deeds, perpetually causing chaos wherever my footsteps fell. Even though most of the things I was involved in could easily get anyone sentenced to prison for a couple of years, I had, thankfully, managed to evade capture. That is until the day I and some friends stupidly set Mr. Anderson's garage on fire. Some friends of mine, if you could even call them friends, were hanging out when one of us had the brilliant idea of breaking into Mr. Anderson's garage to smoke some marijuana. Once we found ourselves inside, competing to outdo each other, seeing who could drag the longest, one of my friends bumped into some tool supplies, causing them to fall. The loud clattering from the supplies caused whoever held the joint to drop it, thus igniting the flammable fumes. My so-called cohorts scattered in a panic, abandoning me amidst the chaos. After narrowly getting around the escalating flames and flinging the door open with desperate urgency, I was met with the garage's owner, Mr. Anderson. His face bore a deep hue of anger, perfectly complementing his disheveled bathrobe. With a swift, aggressive motion, he grabbed me by my collar, hurling me out into the safety of the open air. He then retrieved a fire extinguisher, smothering the raging fire. With the fire subdued, he wasted no time in calling my parents. The ensuing retribution I faced at the hands of my mother was nothing in comparison to the penance that awaited me. Opting not to get the law involved, a deal was struck between Mr. Anderson and my parents. To make amends, I'd have to get a summer job, ensuring every cent went to mending the damage to his property. To say I viewed the arrangement with resentment would be putting it mildly. After a tedious search through various job listings in collaboration with my parents, we collectively settled on a pizza delivery driver. The job requirements were straightforward: 17 years of age and a legitimate driver's license. The work, in its essence, wasn't the worst thing in the world. Often, I'd sit around awaiting orders, then go out on deliveries. The pay wasn't all that good though, but the added perk of being able to keep tips was a bonus. Except, nearly every tip I got found its way to the garage repair fund. I'd say the only downside of the job was the long hours and the ever-challenging act of managing human confrontations. It might come as a surprise, but some folks go crazy over the smallest imperfections in their orders. Forget a drink? Prepare for the damn fireworks. I've faced enraged shouts, had doors violently closed in my face, and even encountered those audacious enough to refuse payment yet demand their meal. Weeks into this routine, as another day neared its conclusion, a late order buzzed in. It was close to 11 p.m., and I was on the brink of clocking out when my boss flagged me down, signaling one last delivery. Groaning inwardly, I accepted. As I waited for the pizza to be ready, I mulled over my predicament. What surprised me wasn't just the timing, but the simplicity of the order itself. A small cheese pizza. It might strike you as odd, but had I been the one ordering at the brink of closing, I'd have opted for a full-blown feast, sides, drink, and all. But I digress. I finally headed out. I input the delivery address into my phone's GPS and was nearly compelled to fling the pizza out of my car. The destination was far, way out on the town's outskirts. This had better come with a big tip, I mused. The journey itself was uneventful. The streets, bathed in the glow of the moon, grew more desolate as I distanced myself from the town. Arriving at my destination, a peculiar unease enveloped me. The house, though covered in darkness, seemed typical. Yet, the same dread that gripped me when confronting Mr. Anderson in the blaze of his garage suddenly resurfaced. Readying myself, I walked towards the front door. Just as my knuckles prepared to announce my presence, my eyes landed on a note adhered to the door: "They're asleep. Enter. Money's inside." I entertained the thought of just pitching the pizza at the door, but I instead cautiously turned the doorknob. The cracks as I opened the door were loud, It felt as if my every attempt at being quiet only made me louder. Stepping within, what immediately struck me was the home's emptiness. The expansive living room played host to just a lone table with no chairs. Approaching the table, another note came into view. Right next to the payment for the order, the scribbled thank you did little to help my escalating irritation, especially when I realized they were shortchanging me, and, adding insult to injury, no tip. Visions of setting the house on fire briefly danced in my mind, but swallowing my wrath, I bellowed into the house. Dismissing the prior instructions, "Hello? Delivery here," I said loudly. Silence. In a last-ditch effort, I knocked on the front door from within. That's when an unsettling sound reached my ears, a faint, muffled whimper, echoing from the depths of a distant corridor. My mind was torn between the drive to collect my rightful money and the urge to leave. With renewed determination, I blitzed down the hallway, throwing doors open in a fury. But with each vacant room, my motivation for monetary justice was replaced by an overwhelming urge to leave. 2 barren bedrooms and an empty bathroom later, I exclaimed with frustration, "Fine. Keep your fucking pizza." Yet, as I was about to leave, a whimper caught my ear, coming from a door to my left. Hesitantly, I opened it, revealing a staircase descending into darkness, a basement. With a more concerned tone, I called out, "Hello? Your pizza's here." A woman's voice whimpered back, only saying 2 words that sent chills down my spine, "Help me." Without hesitation, I dialed the police, explaining my bizarre situation, that I hadn't received the money for the pizzas and that I heard someone calling for help from inside the house. They told me to wait outside and that they would send a car right away. Sure, I've earned my reputation as a troublemaker, even an arsonist on occasion, but I couldn't simply turn a deaf ear to a desperate plea for help. I hesitated at the top of the staircase, its creaking would threatening to crumble beneath me. Gathering my nerves and illuminating the path with my phone's flashlight, I walked down into the darkness. The basement floor was slick, smeared with a substance, perhaps a result of pipes dripping from above. As my phone's light swept the room, it landed on her, a woman, bound to a metal pillar, her body marked with bruises. Instinctively, I approached and freed her, all the while whispering words of reassurance. Assisting her up the stairs, we were met with an intense beam of light and authoritative voices commanding us to stop, causing me to nearly lose my grip on her. The police had arrived. I explained to them what happened, and they led both of us to safety. All the while, other officers combed the premises, but ultimately, their search yielded nothing. As we waited for the situation to be resolved, I took a moment to dial my boss, explaining what happened and firmly expressing my intention to never return to the job. The officers, after taking my statement and expressing their gratitude, informed me I was free to go. The community began hailing me as a hero, a savior of sorts. Even Mr. Anderson granted me a reprieve on the money owed after hearing of what I'd done. I didn't feel like a hero, it was luck. A follow-up from the police a few days later intensified this feeling. They disclosed that the girl was also a delivery driver who had been reported missing just 2 days prior. She recounted her experience, explaining her abduction during a routine delivery. The chilling detail was her admission of never seeing her captor's face or hearing their voice. The weight of this revelation settled heavily within me, recognizing that our fates could have easily been switched. Her very survival might have hinged on my entry into that house. I grappled with endless questions. Why wasn't it me bound in the basement? Why was she seemingly left for me to discover? Who was behind the order? The mysteries deepened when, just yesterday, I stumbled upon a note at my doorstep reading, "Thanks for the pizza." And now that I think about it, when I was being ushered out of the house by the police that night, I don't remember seeing the pizza that I left on the table in the living room. Pizza delivery. This story is something that I will never forget. I worked at a local pizza shop called Dominic's. It was a Friday night and we were about to close. I was cleaning the place up, getting ready to go home when the phone rang. We were understaffed, so I was working the counter alone that night and taking all the calls. Dominic's Pizza, how can I help you? There was complete silence, so I hung up. Probably the wrong number. A minute goes by and the phone rings again. Dominic's Pizza, how I help you? There was still silence on the other end. I was frustrated and about to hang up again when I heard the voice of a very weak old man on the other end. He said he needed 2 pepperoni pizzas delivered. I remained professional on the phone, but was screaming with rage on the inside. It was the weekend and I just wanted to end my shift and get home to my girlfriend. I told my boss about the last-minute delivery and he said that I had to take it. I cursed him out under my breath. But I needed the tip money anyway, I reminded myself. I wrote down the address and informed the old man it would be there soon. But he had already hung up. Rude, I said. His tip better not be shit, I thought. After the cook made the 2 pies, I loaded them into my car. My boss told me to just go home after the delivery. It was already late and we'd be closed by the time I got back. It was 11 p.m. when I got into my car and plugged in the GPS. The house was 10 minutes away. I noticed it was located on the quiet side of town where there were a lot of woods and forests. I pulled up to the house. It was a large 3-story house on a quiet and empty block. I took the pizzas, walked up to the door, and rang the doorbell. The house was completely dark, with no lights on at all. I hoped this wasn't some kind of prank or the old man had accidentally given me the wrong address. I rang the doorbell again. Still no answer. I was about to leave when I heard a faint chanting. Almost like people humming in unison. That's when I noticed people standing in the windows. I was immediately freaked out and took a step back. The people behind the windows were chanting louder. I couldn't see any of their faces, just black masses in a dark house. I yelled, "I'm just here to deliver the pizzas," and that's when the chanting stopped. Even in the dark, I could see the people with big smiles on their faces. Not pleasant smiles, but smiles that gave me get the hell out of here vibes. Those smiles plastered through the windows still haunt me to this day. I decided that my minimum wage job wasn't worth finding out what these people were doing. I set the pizzas down on the front porch and bolted to my car. I started my car and sent my boss a quick text about the situation, ready to get the hell out of there. I looked to my right only to see 10 people standing outside my passenger window. They all had cloaked hoods on and were holding some kind of bone necklaces. I said nope and hit the gas pedal, flooring it down the street, not looking back once. I quit my job after that and told myself I would never do late-night deliveries again. Weird pizza delivery man. Hi everyone, this is my third time posting. Thank you for all the feedback on my other stories. A bit about me is I'm a 16-year-old kid, I'm a skater, and I have blue hair. This happened when I just turned 7. I had a bunch of my friends over to stay the night. My mom had ordered pizza. It was me, Jake, Cameron, Rian, Adam, Casey, and Michael. We were inseparable. So we're watching TV in my room. I didn't have a gaming console then. When we heard the door ring, so me and my friends ran downstairs where my mom was at the door. We ran downstairs and stopped at the door. We saw my mom talking to the pizza guy. He saw us and gave this weird smile. He was in his mid-50s. We were young at the time. We didn't see the red flags. We get a slice and take it upstairs to my room. My mom came and told us it was time for bed, so we lay down. I had a bunk bed and a normal bed, so me and Cameron slept on the bunk bed. Casey and Michael slept on the normal bed. Rian, Adam, and Jake slept on my couch in my room. It was one of those couches with the bed that comes out of it, so they slept on that. About 45 minutes after we got to bed, I heard this thump on the wall of my house. We all hear it and shoot up from our beds. I remembered I didn't lock my window, but luckily Jake jumped off the bed and locked my window. I'm glad he did, because he reached out of nowhere and tried to open my window. We all screamed and my mom heard it and ushered all in the bathroom. While she calls the cops, we hear a smash and glass breaking. We lock the bathroom door and turn the light off. We hear footsteps and we all hush up. They stop in front of the bathroom door. We were all pretty short, so Cameron and I hid in the first cabinet. Everyone split into different cabinets and quietly closed the door. The next thing we heard was the wood on the bathroom door break. We all jump and hold our breath while he walks around looking. We hear sirens outside. We hear him trying to run, but we hear the cops yell, "Get down on the ground, drop your weapon." Then I hear my mom scream. My fight or flight turns on, and I come out from the cabinet, grab the closet thing that looks like a weapon, sneak up behind him, lift my arms like I'm holding a bat and swing, but I miss and hit the wall, and he turns around and gives that same smile. I recognize him as the pizza guy. I'm in shock. When I'm in shock, I get angry, pick up the thing again, and smack him in the leg as hard as I can. I run off after I did it, and he chases after me, but I hear the cops run after him, and I turn and I see a cop tackle him to the ground and cuff him and take him out to the car. I remember this because the same guy came into where I work and gave me that same smile. I knew it was him. He remembered my face, and I remembered his. Fake pizza guy at my door. This happened back when I was 17 and living in a small rural village. I had been at a friend's all evening watching films and chilling, and I left to go home around 11 p.m. It was quite a long walk back to mine, as she lived on the outskirts of the village down some back roads. I felt relatively safe, as when it got to a certain time of night it was quiet. You wouldn't bump into anybody, and there would hardly be any cars on the roads, especially at that late hour. It was weirdly peaceful. Where I lived was a large avenue with 2 big blocks of houses, like 2 big circles that you would get to after following a small dark road that consisted of a few large old houses and a vicarage. As I am passing the vicarage, I see this little beat-up red Nissan Micra coming towards me. The closer it gets, the more it slows down, and the guy is nearly breaking his neck trying to look at me. I mean, there was nothing subtle about it. It nearly came to a full stop as it drew alongside me, and I started to panic. There was not another soul about, just me and this strange guy. I was determined not to get myself in a tizzy, so I picked up the pace and refused to look at him. As far as I know, he drove off. I continued walking home, which was a 5-minute straight line from there, and I kept listening out for a car engine and was vigilant of any headlights creeping up behind me. I heard nothing and saw nothing, so I breathed a sigh of relief as I could now see my house. I walked in and locked the door and saw my mom standing in the living room chatting on the phone. I'm trying to interrupt her conversation, telling her about the weird guy in the red car, when for some reason she goes to the front window and peeks through the curtain. She takes the phone from her ear and says, "What, that car?" This is all in a minute since walking through the door, and I'm thinking to myself it can't be him, because if he had followed me I would have heard the car. Before I even get a chance to look for myself, there is a knock at the front door, so I go and answer it, only pulling it open a few inches, and there is this guy standing there empty, wearing a baseball cap. It was the same guy, the same car. I'm just like, WTF. I say, "Can I help you?" "Did you order a pizza?" he asks me, and I'm like, "No, I think you have the wrong house." Taking a step towards me, he says again in a not fucking around kind of tone, "No," I said, "Did you order a pizza?" Before I reply, my mom has come up behind me, opened the door fully, and says, "Is there a problem?" This causes him to back up, mumbling, "I must have the wrong address," before he gets in his car and takes off. Sure to say, we were both a bit spooked and made sure everywhere was locked up properly. So to the stealthy alleged pizza guy who stalked me home. Pizza delivery. While many think being a pizza man is fun and all, there can be some dark moments. For example, the idea of going to a stranger's house thinking it will be another friendly customer, but have you ever wondered what is going on after the customer takes the pizza? One night we got a call claiming it was our boss and how he just wanted one normal cheese pizza. My closing manager and I thought to ourselves, why would he be ordering at 12 when he knows we close? With no questions asked, we just got to work and did what we were told to do for our last order. As I walk to my car and drive, I can't help but think, why is he doing this so late? But who knows, I might get a good enough tip from him this late. 15 minutes later, I arrived at the house where he told me to meet him, and sure enough, I knocked, and who answered the door wasn't my boss. The man had only one eye and barely any teeth. His hands were crimson red, as if he had just murdered someone, and he explained how he was just cutting up some meat for the morning. I immediately got bad vibes from this man, and he even went as far as inviting me in. I replied, for safety reasons, we cannot go into any customer's house. The man frowned and gave me the money and a good tip amount. Until next time, he said with a devilish grin, and he slowly shut the door behind him. Curious, I drove around to the back street to see what the man was up to, and sure enough, he was cutting something with a butcher knife. I thought to myself that maybe the man was just cutting some meat like he said, and sometimes I am overly dramatic when I cook too. The next day, my boss asked me if I delivered to the house, and I told him yes. My boss told me that some people have been going missing, and it usually takes place around that house, but no evidence can be found on the man's property. A phone rang and I answered it. The time was the same time the man called last night, only this time it was 11:57 a.m. The man asked for me personally to deliver to his house, and this time he ordered the meats. With no rush, I headed over to his house, but this time a rotten and unsettling smell was emitted from his living room. One man's eye was bloodshot and his mouth was bleeding, and flesh could still be seen from his front teeth. "Come in if you must," he said. I quickly denied his request, and he refused to pay, so I quickly walked back to my car and drove off. To this day, the man never called back for delivery, and I have never seen him since, not even in public, just randomly walking around. So one thing is for sure, when you deliver pizzas, keep in mind you never know what you can run into or who you will meet, especially those strange, questionable customers. I would like to order pizza. Hello, I would like to order a pizza. This is what I have been hearing all day, and I cannot believe it. The violence within household groups from both men and women is just staggering. When they add pepperoni or other items to the pizza, it just sends shivers down my spine. Sometimes it's the woman who makes the call, other times it's the man, and now and then it's a child. When a child makes a call ordering for pizza, my faith in humanity just goes down. I wish I was on the front line of the police again. Instead, I had been put down to office duty and answering phone calls. Hello, I would like to order a pizza. I want a pizza. That is all I have been hearing all day, and I am tempted to just get off my seat, get into a car, drive down to one of these houses, and just lay out justice to the abuser. I kind of regret joining the police in the first place and witnessing the things I have witnessed. It's quite traumatizing. Going home after a night of violence, crime and murder will always be surreal, and to try and go to sleep after all of that is just hard. Just constantly more pizza orders with sides, which just disgusts me even more as it tells me that the violence has turned gory. Why can't people just be nice? I then told myself that if I got one more call that ordered a pizza, then I would get up from my seat and go down to the house and shoot the abuser. I will bring justice on my terms. And when another call came through and another so-called pizza order, I got up from my seat and went down to the very house the call had come from and knocked on the front door. The call came from a woman ordering a pizza, so I knew the man was the abuser. When the man opened the door and looked confused with a 30-pound note in his hands, he asked me, "Where's the pizza?" And as I shot him down, his wife screamed in horror. I then remembered that I don't work for the police anymore and that I work in a pizza joint. It was just instinctive or automatic for me to react like that after working so long in the police. Some things are hard to shake off.